with Kelly Lewis, and I am Thick Rick, and we are now joined by Rober Schuerger, who will go to war for you. Warforyou.com. Yes. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good weekend. Eclipse this week and WrestleMania. So two epic events.
Rober Schuerger was going to go to Tibet so he could meditate with the
Tibet?
monks. With the
Where
monks.
is that?
That's like
Tibet.
Dino.
Tibet. But he decided not to because of WrestleMania weekend, so he went hiking in the Appalachian Trails. But it was a good thing he did because he stumbled on some campers that found themselves being attacked by a grizzly, and with just his wit and a spear that he fashioned from a broken tree branch, Schuerger fended off the grizzly and then carried two of the campers 10 miles to safety.
I speak grizzly, too, so I was able to negotiate with the bear a deal to let us go. Yeah.
Man, it's funny, and I'm glad you came in early. I was about to talk about this. There's so many scams out there and scheming, and now, I don't know if you've heard about this one. Scammers are now using AI-generated fake obituaries. Have you heard about this?
No.
Yeah, to try to get at lucrative ad revenue in a new scheme, this Los Angeles Times reporter, Deborah Vankin, read her own obituary and watched news anchors talk about her death. She was watching it on TV. She was, one of the latest victims of these scammers who fabricate death announcements to get clicks and ad revenue.
That's incredible.
I mean, what will they think of? That's crazy.
Yeah, pretty soon AI is going to, everyone's going to be out of work, right?
Yeah. They call them obituary pirates, these scammers. That's what they call them.
So
I don't get how they're making money off this.
So are they clicking on? Are they putting ads around the obituary for people to click on?
Okay, well the AI creates a death announcement that is padded with keywords for Google searches, which that just spreads alarm and misinformation. But it.
On famous people? Because I'm not clicking on some random obituary.
Well, yeah, and the famous ones are the ones that get the most. This girl was a reporter. She's a big time reporter in L.A., so they knew that people would start searching it.
Okay. So these are If John Smith,
I was gonna say, if I saw Midge's obituary from Westerville, I wouldn't. Okay.
Yeah, there's not much traffic on that one. You'd say.
The actual victim is the network of buyers that place the ads on the platforms. So that's what that's.
So that's why Kathleen Turner, Gene Hackman. I've seen some recent articles where they claim that they've seen him in public for the first time in a decade. So I'm sure we're going to see some of this AI stuff coming up on their obituary soon.
My gosh!
Well, but I mean, look at what went on with Kate Middleton, where everybody had guesses and everything else, and everybody had their speculations, and then all of a sudden she came out and went, "Hi, I'm battling cancer. That's why you haven't seen me." And then everybody was like, "Well, aren't we the asses in the room?"
So I think Steve Colbert had to take a few things back.
So we're obviously going to talk about squatters. That's such a big issue right now. But real quick, Lewis asked us this the other day, because the Powerball and the Mega Millions had gotten so huge. He said, so if you borrow $10 from me and you go play the lottery
with the intention of playing the lottery.
Yeah, like he loans me $10. So I'm like, hey man, I ain't got cash. I need to run over and play the lottery.
Like the office pools, how people pool money together to go buy a ticket, or
no. This is just where I say, hey, can I borrow $10? I need to go over here and play. Nothing else said. I just asked to borrow $10. If I win, how much do I owe him?
Well, here's the thing. It all depends what's on that ticket. So you're going to see the disclaimer on the lottery ticket. And the lottery ticket, technically, that money goes to the person who bought the ticket.
Right. Yeah. No, but I mean, like, he loans me $10 to go buy the lottery ticket. So I feel like I owe him $10. Now, I would give him more, but legally, I only owe him $10.
Correct. With nothing, with nothing in writing, it'd be very difficult to make the claim that you.
Would you go to war for me for my half of $1.7 billion?
Well, I'll tell you on that contingency fee. I think we can create an argument to get something there.
Because no matter at that point, if it's $1.7 billion and he comes back. There's no number that's going to be right.
I'd say, Rick, look, you know what? All the money we're going to go through, I think Lewis is settled for 100.
Right.
100,000, not $100.
Because if you came with me and you won $1.7 billion, you go, hey, here's a check for $2 million. I mean, seriously? That's it?
Well, I'd say, what kind of friendship is this, right? How long have you guys known each other?
No, I like your $100,000 idea. All right, Robert Schuerger from Schuerger and Shannara Law Firm in the studio. Love having him in. We are going to talk squatting coming up next.
Traffic.
Metallica on the Morning Blitz, 740 with Kelly Lewis Rick, and now joined by Robert Schuerger from Schuerger and Shannara Law Firm. Just sitting here listening to the longest wrestling conversation I've been part of in a while. That was great.
I'm amazed that Kelly was just right in there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I saw her eyes rolling back in her head, reminding me of when we talk football.
I was going to say, and I thought football was bad, and then this happened.
Rick, we take back our $100,000 offer. Lewis's $100 million.
Exactly.
I'll still be okay.
Yeah.
WarForYou.com.
You should have agreed quicker.
All right. Well, let's get into the whole squatting thing first. And I'm just, I don't know where common sense has gone. I don't know how this happens. Maybe you can explain it. What I do know is that in Ohio, we have, so it's section 2913.04, unauthorized use of property. No person shall knowingly use or operate the property of another without the consent of the owner or person authorized to give consent. So how can squatting happen?
So squatting happens. Each state has different rules in terms of squatting. Fifth Amendment protects private property. Private property can't be taken without just compensation. Fundamental right in this country. But in places like New York City and the 5 boroughs, they have loopholes and exceptions. And one of those exceptions is a 30-day rule. So let's say you go on vacation for a month and somebody knows that, and you don't know your neighbors. Somebody breaks into your house and squats in there. You come home day 31 in one of the 5 boroughs, and you've lost the right to your property based upon the local law in the boroughs. And that's what's happening in New York. So the 30-day rule in New York is really what's gotten a lot of attention. In Ohio, we have it's called adverse possession. If you're in possession of property or a home, let's say a widower passes away and you move into the house and the estate's trying to sell it, but Ohio is a 21-year adverse possession. You have to be in control of that property for 21.
Oh, instead of 30 days.
Yeah. 30 days is just New York.
Who the heck came up with that?
And actually, the state of New York, the state outside of the 5 boroughs is 5 years. So, and California has a similar issue to New York, but it's not 30 days. It's, I believe it's a year of adverse possession. So people have to, and adverse possession is a legal term, meaning that people have to believe that you own the property, that you've been there. Nobody's called up and said, hey, somebody broke into the house and they're squatting. That's a problem in New York, particularly with the migrant crisis that's going on. And then the influencer that was arrested in terms of trying to tell people that
I saw that guy.
You could just go in, find a house, squat in it, and if you're there for X amount of time, it's yours.
Yeah, he was here in Columbus.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Gahanna. Yeah, they arrested him in Gahanna.
The other thing, too, with probate can go on for years.
Well, and that's why, like in California, one of the biggest issues in the squatters is the fact that the cost of money to evict somebody who is trying to squat on your property. So let's say you come back from vacation, somebody's in your home. It's not like you can call the police and they can take them out. You have to go through a whole process to get them out.
Why is that?
That's because of the rules that have been set up for historically throughout the legislature. So the key is the legislature needs to change the rules.
Yeah, like today.
And I don't know why. And the interesting part is I'm not hearing an outcry of in like New York, for example. 30 days is the shortest period in the country. I mean that if somebody takes a long, let's say you go to Florida
for Christmas.
Let's say you go to Florida for half the year.
Yeah.
And you've got a place in New York, and you come back, and there's people at the place.
But why would somebody even come up with this rule? It's just there's no common sense there. I don't understand that.
Jay said there's a guy in his neighborhood that would do it constantly. Once he got the electric turned on, they had to evict him, and he would literally walk right down the street, find the next open house, and move in there for a few days.
I mean, this is just...
Yeah, it's an example where common sense did not trump the...
That's what I mean.
the implementation of the law. Now, there are some issues, and New York has always had very weird and unusual landlord-tenant rules and tenant laws. So the 30 days must emanate from some type of curveball that was thrown, decades ago that has just continued to be, a loophole that's abused that happens all the time.
But you said in Ohio it's 21 years?
Yeah, Ohio, yeah.
Okay, so how in the world could somebody just move into a house and get all the utilities on and everything and be living there? I mean, there's taxes involved.
Well,
who's not? If you don't pay the property tax, somebody's going to come.
It comes down to, like you said, the scam. And that's why a lot of these places now are even more stringent about identity, about figuring out your identity, so that things like this don't happen.
Right.
Because you can create a fraudulent identity and say that you purchased the property, and then they might ask you a few questions. You answer those questions, and then they turn it on. Because ultimately they're looking to get paid for the utilities. So for the utility example.
Okay, so you talked about what you have to go through to get this person removed. Let's say it is Ohio, though, and you did go to Florida for 6 months. Let's say you're somebody in Ohio goes to Florida for 6 months. You come back and find somebody in your house. It's only been 6 months, so is it that hard to get them removed in Ohio?
In Ohio, you charge them with criminal trespassing.
Okay, would be. So the police would.
Yeah, the police
would.
Then you'd bring the sheriff out, and then you would physically remove them.
Wow, New York's just dumb.
But New York, and that's why that loophole is. So you've got a lot of people who are now living half the year down in Florida, particularly for tax reasons or whatever, and they have the property in New York. That was an issue that happened like in the Hamptons. So another curveball on this is like Airbnbs, right?
Right.
So let's say somebody is an Airbnb tenant for a period of time, and then they just don't leave.
Oh, my gosh.
And then they just stay. And now, like you said, you've got to go through the whole eviction process. Now with Airbnb, there's technically a contract, is this person going to continue to pay? I mean, it becomes a complete nightmare.
Doug said he knew a guy that started moving into an empty house and lived there, turned the utilities on, and then never paid rent. The property owner found out, was there. Rather than to get him out, they just started making him pay rent because he had.
Oh, he just became cheaper. Well, here's a lease, dude.
Yeah,
stay, and here's a lease.
Sign
the lease. You got it.
Hey, you found me a tenant. We'll waive the back rent.
You got a text says you're asking too many questions on how to get away with this. Thick. Everything okay back home?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Hey, I think I was brought in here for some free legal advice.
Hypothetically.
Yeah. Asking for a friend.
Well, okay, and then Jay texts and he says, well, if it's your house, Rick, the property taxes are on you, not the squatter. But I'm talking about like somebody moves out of a house and it's just vacant.
Yeah.
How would a squatter get in and get everything turned on and keep the taxes paid? That's bizarre to me.
Do you remember that? Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? We had that story about the squatters in a gorgeous multi-million-dollar home in California.
Oh, they were throwing the parties.
They were throwing the parties. They couldn't get them out. The owner of the home fled to Lebanon because he was being wanted in the murder of his girlfriend. So there was no owner around, but the whole HOA and all the neighbors, it's a really wealthy neighborhood. They're so upset about it. It's happening still to this day. That these people are wild, throwing these crazy parties. They don't own the home, and nobody's able to make it right.
And that's an example of the civil justice system moving at a glacial speed. Because even if the HOA makes a claim to try to get them out, the people in the home are kind of like, well, we'll stay here until we're physically forced to leave, and that's probably a year out by the time a hearing comes up.
Okay, so when the person who's been in Florida for 6 months comes back to New York and this squatter's there, does the person who actually owns the property who came back, are they still allowed in the house?
No, technically the squatter has taken over possession.
So now they're homeless?
That's one of the problems.
And all their property, all their belongings, their clothes, everything?
Yep.
Come on.
That's insane.
This is nuts.
Joe Rogan brought this up on his podcast a while back, was saying the exact same thing you are, Rick, about how crazy this is. Because he had heard the horror stories as well, and he was bringing it up to his listeners, saying this is absolutely asinine.
Well, yeah.
How do we not get this changed?
And the fact that the police have to say, well, there's nothing we can do. I mean, this person owns the property. This person's trespassing. And you're like, that's the law. It's like, what? Come on.
Jacob said, what if I have a neighbor that has stuff on my property for some time? Do I have any right to go and remove it?
Your stuff is squatting on my property.
Has it been there for 30 days?
Yeah. Are you one of the 5 boroughs?
No kidding.
Oh, my gosh. By the way, we've got several texts again. People love your laugh.
Oh,
We need to bring up the teacher as well, but we kind of talked about this off the air. If someone's up for a promotion, but the company has a facial hair policy, and they won't shave because they have a medical reason for not shaving. And now the boss doesn't want to promote them anymore. Do they have any legal?
As somebody who has facial hair, I would definitely take up arms and represent him because I feel I would be discriminated against in that situation.
By the time he's done, he'll never shave again in his life.
But unfortunately, I don't see a carve out for us in the in the discriminatory column.
Well, what's that? Because there's a fine line between what your company policy is and what your legal policy is. Because I know for the longest time, for the Cincinnati Reds, you had to be clean shaven to play for the Reds, and I think the Yankees might still have. There's another baseball team that has that policy too. So if you want to play there.
Yeah, I'm sure in that situation, the HR department has some type of workaround. If you're promised a promotion, being verbal is very different than having it in writing, and that's again company policy is what they're going to point.
But
towards.
Bearded people aren't protected or protected
exactly.
class.
That's
right?
How do you identify as a Sasquatch?
we're like the cavemen. We're discriminated against too.
We also we have the teacher. Do you want to come back and bring up the teacher?
No, we need to do it now.
All right, let's do it now.
Time.
So we had this discussion. Was it yesterday or the day before? Might have been yesterday.
I think yesterday.
Yesterday. There's a teacher that took 2 days off, sick days. She used her sick days. She went to a concert in Nashville. She's had a tenure with 2 different school districts that we figured totaled up to about 20 years that she's been an educator, a volleyball coach, or something else. So one of her employees or coworkers ratted her out and said she was at a concert. So now the school district has her on unpaid leave, and they're waiting a hearing to terminate her because she violated their use of sick day policy.
Yeah, I would. Hopefully she can give me a call so we can take up arms in this. This is another example where common sense is not being taken into consideration. I mean, you have a well-tenured teacher. I believe this was up in Cleveland. I remember reading the article as well. I was enraged by it, but I know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I know. I mean, technically, the administration, I think what they're trying to avoid is if they allow one exception of somebody to abuse the sick time. The problem I have in this situation is that the punishment must fit the crime. In that situation, there should be some type of suspension, not a termination for a 2-day miss on sick days.
Then I guess she's a really good teacher too. Why do you want to get rid of her?
Yeah, that's why that's a cause that's definitely worthy to take up, regardless of the technicalities of the argument.
What do you think about all these teachers now that are? Their side hustle is OnlyFans. Like, I can kind of understand the OnlyFans thing. I mean, I support the OnlyFans thing. He has his own page. Right. I mean, I run specials on mine all the time. But I think I understand the OnlyFans thing because if that gets out, that does kind of become it doesn't pass the optic test for your school. It's a black mark against, I get that.
And with education, and it's at that in public education particularly, now you're delving into a whole different area of public policy law in dealing with OnlyFans. It also depends what kind of content I think is on the OnlyFans site and what you're doing in terms of termination. But again, it comes back to that agreement that the teachers have, and those teachers unions are very powerful in putting together an agreement that protects teachers in situations like this. So it would be interesting to see, particularly now with the advent of side hustles coming on, if union contracts in the future protect teachers, allowing them to allowing them to have side hustles. I know my girlfriend is a teacher who works hard every day. I mean, she works 80, 100 hours a week. It seems like more so than most people. So, but only gets compensated the same.
What grade does she teach?
5th.
5th grade. Okay. All right. I was talking to them, to Kelly and Lewis the other day. I said we need to get a teacher who's on standby when we have, because we always get stories about schools and teaching to somebody who we can consult on this stuff.
Oh yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, I mean, we have to bring her in under a black light because the district might not like the answers, right?
Well, but the other thing too is like with sick days. Like we were having the discussion yesterday, if I'm going to the dentist and I know I'm going to spend 3 hours in a dentist chair, I'm using a sick day because that's not a vacation to me.
Yeah,
that's not. I'm not going out to have a good time.
Yeah, and I think in that the sick day policies. I mean, even when I was working before I started the law firm, I remember it was always very specific about what you could and could not use the sick days for. Technically, but a lot of people still use the sick days for other things. So this is an example of somebody must have an agenda, unfortunately, against this teacher to even make this
right.
to even go out of their way to say, hey, she used these two. Technically, she didn't use PTO; she used 2 sick days to go to the concert.
Well, a lot of companies quit using like sick days and vacation days.
It's called PTO.
PTO, personal time off.
Yep.
You have these days. Whether you're sick, vacation, use them however you want.
Yeah.
Now, teachers obviously have different things. We got some texts that teachers get 3 PTO days a year, and I don't know if she used them up.
And look, I think that the definition of sick days and PTO are, again, a relic of the past.
Yeah.
And I think, this current contract that this woman's in up there in Cleveland, probably, there shouldn't be really any, in my estimation, between PTO and sick days, it should all be PTO. You determine what you want to do on your time off. It's getting paid the same either way. So,
what happens if, let's say, the teacher who ratted out this particular teacher ends up getting shanked in the bathroom? Does these stitches, do the snitches get stitches rule? Does that apply as a defense?
It's like the purge, right? You're going to take justice in your own hands for
exactly.
it.
Oh, my gosh. Well, we're out of time. I swear, Robert, every time you come in, the time flies.
No, this is great.
We never have enough time with you, I swear. Love it. Can't wait to get you back in. And, maybe we'll see you at WWE Raw.
Oh, yeah.
But
definitely. That'll be out.
Kelly, you're going, right?
100% front row, baby.
You got to come and experience the spectacle, Kelly.
Yeah.
Actually, you should. You do need to see it.
You have an appreciation for the choreography of it.
I did not think I would like monster trucks. Love monster trucks. So
tell you.
I'm sure it might be the same thing.
We're trying something new.
Yeah.
You go to Raw, you'll meet some true believers, and you'll understand.
Yeah.
Well, if you need the best lawyer in Ohio, go to warforyou.com and
follow us on Instagram at warforyou law.
At warforyou law. There you go. Well, thanks so much, man. We'll do it again next time.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.